Craig Fishneck did with this paper. He brought in a bunch of scientists from around the world, engineers, biologists, ecologists, and he said, let's identify the critical functions that streams and floodplains provide. Well, they identified 15, and it's really interesting to look at their description of those 15 because 13 out of the 15, in order to protect those functions, required floodplains and riparian vegetation on those floodplains. The functions include, here's the laundry list: stream evolution processes, energy management processes, riparian succession, surface water storage processes, surface-subsurface connections, hydrodynamic balances, sediment continuity, like sediment erosion, transport, deposition, maintaining substrates, the quality and quantity of sediment, supporting biological communities, supporting the necessary aquatic and riparian habitats, maintain trophic structure and processes, maintain water quality, maintain soil quality, maintain chemical processes, nutrient cycles, maintain landscape pathways for the critters. You're getting sleepy. I lost about 85% of you with that laundry list. I cannot take that list of ecological functions into Dennis's office and get him turned on by hyperrheic zones. It's not going to happen. Okay, so how do we communicate this new business model we need to sell floodplain management? Okay, so we need to move from the preoccupation of the management of floodplains for flood risk to reducing risk to floodplain resources and floodplain functions. I love that. That's in the Placencia Monday paper. And if we do manage for protecting resources, we end up protecting ourselves. The Napa River case is a classic example. We went downstream, we purchased 600 acres of farmland, turned it into floodplain that lowered the water, and so we had a floodplain restoration project that lowered the water surface elevation in the city of Napa a mile upstream. Now, we have to articulate those kinds of cases. Now, the second thing we need to do to improve this business model of selling floodplain management is talk a little bit about ecological services, and we're not talking enough about water quality in terms of these ecological services. And so we can actually put a price on the ability of floodplains to give us water quality. Money talks. Okay, I visited this plant in Santa Monica. It was called the Dry Weather Area Runoff Plant, which is dwarf. And the city of Santa Monica is a very liberal, politically correct community, and they realized that they were going to have to rename the plant, so they went with SMURF, Santa Monica Urban Runoff Recycling Facility, which doesn't roll off your tongue as easily. But I took a tour of this plant. It's really cool. What they do is they take runoff from Santa Monica that would typically end up in the ocean and pollute where people surf and swim and so forth. And it goes into this plant. Now, the plant takes this runoff from the city, and it goes through this machine that takes out the grit and sand. It removes the oil and grease. It aerates the water. It reduces turbidity. They take out these ultraviolet lamps and zap the water as it comes out the plant to reduce bacteria and viruses. There's some nutrient reduction. And I went, holy smokes, that's what floodplains do. That's what our ecological literature tells us about the functions of floodplains. So how much did this plant cost? $14.8 million. How much water do you treat from it? Well, it's about 320,000 gallons a day. Well, that's a half a CFS. I'm going, whoa, we can do better with that with a natural system. Okay, so I went to and here's another picture of the plant. And this plant has an educational component too. School kids visit it and they learn about the water cycle and what happens with storm runoff. So, and it's got an artistic aspect to it. It's a fun place to go. All right, now, here's my 1.3 million water treatment plant, Wildcat Creek. Why a $1.3 million treatment plant? Because when you annualize the costs of that Smurf plant and the annual maintenance costs, that's what it ends up being. $1.3 million annualized over 50 years. Okay, so here's a Wildcat Creek, which is in a poverty community in Northern California. Here's its floodplain. It's only about 250 feet wide. I selected an area that's about 4,000 to 5,000 lineal feet long because the literature says that a lot of the treatment functions that we get out of streams occur in as little as 2,000 feet, 3,000 feet. So I'm being conservative here. And this project removes, the floodplain catches the sediment, it aerates the water. We used to think that streams and rivers just carried bacteria and viruses downstream, but we now have research that shows that they actually reduce those. And so we had parallel functions here. All right, now, what did it cost to restore this creek? All right, well, we had a very, very expensive Army Corps of Engineers project, one of these multi-objective projects that has a functioning stream system. And if it wasn't functioning, I couldn't claim these credits for water quality. And annualized over 50 years, and this includes land acquisition, utility relocations, as well as the restoration component, annualized out, it's about $950,000 a year. Now, more typical restoration costs for a project like this, and as a matter of fact, as a nonprofit, I partnered with a county and we restored this area in the same area for only $250,000 annualized over a 50-year period, and the cost could be as low as $2,000.